Today's video is another Oktoberfest themed video. It's about making dumplings from rolls. We call them Semmelknödel and they are super delicious. You will love them. It's very easy to make them. I have prepared most of my ingredients so that I can keep it a little bit short with this video, and I will walk you through the process step by step. So at first I need some bacon and fry it in a pan. I will later add a little bit of onions. These are ingredients that will go into the dumpling dough. I will let them fry on a low temperature right behind me on the stove and will continue to prepare the dough. So the bacon is in the pan and is starting to fry a little bit. I let that happen right behind me and just continue with the video. So for the first step I have to use my rolls. They are rolls from the day before, or in this case even from 2 days before. You can use fresh rolls, but it's more difficult to make the dough with fresh rolls, so it's better if you buy them the day before you want to do the dumplings. So first of all, I want to cube them. So I start by cutting them into stripes, and then I take the half and cut them in this direction, and finally I get my cubes. And I don't want to make them too large because then it will be more difficult for the dumpling to keep its shape once it gets into the water. Always be careful with your fingers. And I always have one extra roll. This is in case that my dough is too wet and I cannot form my dumplings, so I keep this one. And I've already prepared my other rolls before I started the video, so it wouldn't take too much time. What I've also done is I have some milk, 200 milliliters of milk, and I put some butter into it. I think it should be a little warmer so the butter is melting. So I will put it back into the microwave and make sure that this works out. Okay, so this is better. I will now take 3 eggs and just add them here. Okay, I usually do this in a different cup, but right now the other one is in use, so I have to deal with this one. And I will just slightly mix this together. Like this. And it's time for me to add the onions to the bacon because they need to be fried too. And I have more onions than I usually use in the dough, and I also use more bacon today because I also want to make kind of sauce that we want to eat with the dumplings. So if you just want to do the dumplings, just stick to the recipe on my blog. Don't think that you don't use enough if you make it yourself at home and you have less bacon and less onions than I do. So I just go ahead and throw this into the pan. Now look at this. This is the onion and bacon, and I will take about half of it and add it to my breads. And I also want some of this lard in there. Okay, and now I will add the milk and butter mix with the eggs and pour it over the bread. I will not take all at once. I just want to see, you know, it depends very much on how dry, how the rolls have been baking, the dough, how long they have been drying, and sometimes, you know, you feel like you need more fluid and then you take just a little more of the milk, and sometimes it just, you know, soaks it in so badly that you have a well too wet dough and then you cannot shape it. So I've started to be very careful with how much fluid I add, and I also, as I mentioned before, always have an extra roll just in case that the dough gets too wet and I need to add a little more of the bread. And you can do this basically with any bread. So some people even use some pretzels that they have as a leftover and cut them into pieces and make pretzel rolls, pretzel dumplings, and that's very delicious too. Although it's a shame if you have a leftover pretzel. So this starts to look good, and I will also add about a handful of parsley. To me, this is one of the most important ingredients. It gives it a lot of taste. Of course, the bacon gives it a lot of taste too, but the parsley, I think, is just the, you know, just the thing that makes it really, really good. Okay, so I'm at the point where I have to start to knead with my hands, and this is where I notice that this is quite wet. So I might have, although I was careful, I might have to add a little more bread. Of course, I washed my hands before I started this. It's of course very important to work clean when you work with your hands and in general in the kitchen. See how this goes. I think it's good enough to shape them, and I don't think that I want to add additional bread, so I will just keep it like this. In the meantime, I brought some water to a boil right behind me. You can see it probably, or maybe even hear it. It just started boiling, and I will move the camera and everything over there so you can see how I continue. Okay, so since my first dumpling fell apart after a while, I added my last roll to the dough, and I hope this time it will keep its shape a little better. The dough is definitely less wet now. Press it together a little bit, and the water doesn't have to boil very strongly, just a little bit. So in the meantime, while the dumplings are cooking, I will show you how I do our sauce. Usually you have a pot roast when you eat dumplings, but we have definitely lowered our meat consumption because it's better for the environment and it's also healthier. However, as you can see and as you know, I have some bacon in here, so it's not really vegetarian, but it's not a pot roast. yeah, so I will probably never let go of my steaks. I love steaks, but you don't have to eat them that often. And I don't really feel a big pain to reduce my meat intake, and my family is okay with it too. Maybe that's something you want to consider for yourself. There's a lot of healthy alternatives to meat, and I think we all can do a little bit for the environment. Okay, this will take a moment until it's getting hot, and I want to fry this cubed bell peppers with the onions and the bacon, and then I will add the mushrooms. Okay, it's picking up some heat. And it's a very simple and easy sauce that I make. I would usually not put the bell peppers in here. I would usually just do it with the mushrooms. But since my daughter is not a big fan of the mushrooms and I want her to eat some, she can still pick out the mushrooms, but she will definitely want to eat the bell peppers. Okay, it's a good time to add the mushrooms. And I add some salt. And lots of pepper. All right. And I will now add some beef broth. And let it simmer or boil for a little bit. Add a little more salt. And I'll give it a tiny little bit of Hungarian paprika, not too much, it's quite spicy. Turn off the heat for the sauce. And in my last step, when it stops boiling, I will just add some sour cream to the sauce. So I will have a very nice, soft and creamy sauce that goes with the dumplings. Time to add some of the sour cream. And I will bring it back to a little boil. Sour cream always reduces the taste of the salt, so I have to try and see if I have to add a little more salt to the sauce. I'll just have a little bit of the sauce. Yeah, it can have a little more salt, not too much. The dumplings should be ready soon too, so it's about time to serve the meal. And at the end I add some of the parsley that I still have, which will give it a really rich and delicious taste, and it also looks really good, as you can see.